Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know.
So you can help support our channel by heading over to ecoware.us, where you're going to find new designs every week. Check out this one.
Wait, but what if I didn't...
Humble brag.
What if I didn't buy Tesla 37?
This is a custom shirt, so you can put in whatever stock price you bought it at, and we'll print it that way.
That's cool.
Pretty cool. So we carbon offset the production, the shipping, and the life cycle of every product, and we plant a tree for every order.
So it's carbon negative. And we're brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com. This is the EV trip planning app. If you want to get from point A to point B to point C and be charged the whole way and not run out of charge, A Better Route Planner is the app to use. You can use the link down below to get a 30-day free trial to their premium app.
And we're sponsored by our friends at the solar-powered hotels in Schaumburg, Illinois, the Fairfield Inn & Suites by Marriott, and the Town Place Suite Hotel right next door. They're both connected, they're both solar-powered, and they're right near Chicago. So next time you're going there, that's where you should stay.
Brilliant is proud to sponsor Now You Know.
Hey, do you remember these? These are the math workbooks we got you when you were like 10 years old.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember using them that much.
I just remember as a parent feeling like desperate because there was no way to get you ahead in math.
Why don't you just give me a tutor?
I mean, that would have cost like thousands of dollars, and we just couldn't afford it.
Wow. I mean, having used Brilliant, that could have been the solution.
Yeah, are you kidding me? I mean, Brilliant is so much better than workbooks and so much cheaper than tutors.
Yeah, instead of solving for X 1,000 times in a workbook or a textbook or in school, I could have been applying the mathematical concepts I was learning in an interactive and engaging way.
Yeah, and with Brilliant, you're not limited by your school's curriculum.
Yeah, I could have been learning to code. Heck, I could have been learning calculus.
I kind of feel like we let you down.
Well, Brilliant wasn't around back then, so it's not your fault.
But I guess parents today can't use that same excuse, huh?
Yeah, probably not.
To support our channel and learn more about Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/nowyouknow and sign up for free.
And the first 200 people to use that link will get 20% off the annual premium subscription.
All right, so I think the stuff that we report on and talk about on this channel is mind-blowing important stuff.
Topics like electric vehicles, renewable energy, not to mention intercontinental starship travel,
interplanetary travel with reusable rockets, boring tunnels, and hyperloops,
Neuralink brain interfaces, AI. It's fascinating to us, and it seems so relevant.
But here's the thing, and I know you've experienced this too. When you try to talk about these subjects with other people in your life, what happens?
Hey, Fred, so did you hear about the Tesla Cybertruck? I'm thinking of reserving one.
Cyber what? That thing looks weird. What do you mean you're reserving one?
It's an electric pickup truck made of stainless steel. I'm thinking of putting down a $100 deposit to reserve one.
Why? That's weird looking. I don't get it. Why do you want to drive something that weird looking?
Well, for one thing, it's electric, so it's really efficient and it's clean. It won't burn any gasoline.
So you have to charge it every time you want to use it? That's stupid.
And you haven't even gotten to all the good stuff, but you get shut down.
Yeah. How many times has a conversation like this happened to you?
Or maybe it goes like this. Hey, hon, I'm thinking of ordering a Powerwall and getting solar. What do you think?
Oh, this again? I talked to Darlene about this, and she thinks you're crazy. Nobody we know has solar panels or Powerwalls. If it's such a great idea, like you say, then why don't they have it?
You know why you get this reaction from people?
Because all these things that we talk about every week, all these technologies and products are so far ahead that we're ahead of the public consciousness. And therefore, we are niche.
In the minds of most regular people, even in our circles who hear us talk about these things, we are niche.
We might as well be talking about vampires or carbon fiber cellos.
And in society, niche is fine to talk about in very small doses, but only in very small doses, and only as oddities in casual conversations.
Hey, did you hear about that new vampire movie?
Oh yeah, the one with that actor in it.
You want to watch it?
No. We watched a vampire movie like a month ago. I think I'm vampired out.
Yeah, niche stops being niche if you talk about it too much. If you came home every day and you talked about vampires or carbon fiber cellos, what would happen?
Carbon fiber cellos are lighter than wood cellos.
Yeah, I know. You've only told me this like every day. I also know that they're stronger and they're waterproof and you can play them outdoors. Will you ever stop talking about carbon fiber cellos?
But what's weird is that there are other topics that we can talk about every day. Turn on the nightly news, and they're constantly talking about the same topics. Weather, sports, traffic accidents, high-speed police chases, murders, house fires, etc.
Basically, recent history. The news should be called Tonight on Recent History.
Recent history is an acceptable topic. But what we talk about on Now You Know is different.
What we talk about could be called upcoming future.
And upcoming future is considered weird.
Hey, you know what's going to happen in the upcoming future? We're going to have self-driving cars.
Shut up. That's weird. Stop talking about self-driving cars. Let's talk about sports.
You see, recent history is verifiable. It happened. Here's a picture. Here's a video. It happened. You may not like to see a house on fire, but it did happen. There's the proof. They've got the video to show you.
But the upcoming future, on the other hand, well, I don't have any pictures to show you of it happening yet because it hasn't happened yet.
If you're showing us a picture of a weird stainless steel truck that's going to be driving around in a year or two, well, that's just weird. What am I even supposed to do with that information? Because maybe you're wrong. In fact, what makes you think you're right? Just because this guy Elon Musk says it, you believe him? What, are you in a cult or something?
And even though Elon's been proven right time and time and time again, most people don't even know about this stuff that has already happened.
The innovation that is happening so fast.
And it's in areas that most people don't follow. Most people haven't even realized it's no longer science fiction. It's now reality.
I'd like to go back to this idea of recent history for a minute and talk about why we humans value it so much. We've evolved for millions of years, and up until very recently, what just happened was the best indication of what was about to happen. If you were at the campfire and you had a conversation like this. Hey, Barney, have you seen Harold anywhere?
Oh, you mean you haven't heard yet? Yeah, Harold went down by the river this morning and he got eaten by a crocodile.
Crocodile? Good thing you told me. I was just about to go down to the river and take a nap. And you see, what just happened to Harold? That's valuable information.
And you see, humans weren't innovating very fast back then. It took humans thousands of years to go from fire to the wheel.
But human innovation operates on an exponential curve. One invention or innovation spurs more innovation. Having horses and wagons allows humans to travel and share ideas and goods at one speed.
Having automobiles and trains allows us to travel and share ideas at a faster speed.
Having the internet allows us to share ideas even faster. Human innovation accelerates.
And as innovation accelerates, we're actually living at a point in history which is incredible. We're at a point where new ideas can go from idea to reality so fast, faster than has ever been possible before, so fast that most of us can't comprehend what's going on.
We're passing through a stage where what just happened isn't as important as the idea of what is about to happen.
Now you may be saying, wait a second, ideas have always been important.
And yes, ideas have always been important. Ideas are the seeds of innovation. Without these seeds, nothing new would have grown.
But now it's like these seeds are magic. You just plop them in the ground and boom, plants start to grow almost immediately.
I mean, let's talk about an innovation we talk about a lot on this channel. One that already seems very fast. The first automobiles.
We went from everyone having horses in 1910 to nobody having horses a decade later. An adoption of a new technology that took the world by storm in less than a generation.
But let's look at an innovation even more recent. Email. I remember when I got email on the Prodigy network back in 1988.
So is that when everyone got email?
No, almost nobody had email in 1988.
So then how did you have it?
There was only a few services like Genie and Prodigy. So my dad paid for this Prodigy service, this new internet service, and it had like weather and movie reviews, and it had email.
So I mean, if you had Prodigy, you could just email anybody.
Well, no. So you had to be a member of Prodigy. So you could only email other Prodigy members. So when we moved to California in 1992, I could email my dad and my uncle because they were on Prodigy, but nobody else that I knew of even had email or even knew about Prodigy. Now, I'm sure that people at the Defense Department and other like major universities had email, but most people had no idea what email even was. I remember talking to people about email, how I could write emails to my dad and he could write back immediately. And some people didn't get it at all. Like, why can't you just call him? And others were intrigued, but usually they got hung up on some small detail. Like, so you have to tie up your phone line and you have to buy a modem for your computer? That sounds complicated. That sounds expensive. And to be honest, it was. I mean, maybe the technology wasn't even worth it back then, but I remember being really glad that I had it because my dad and I wrote emails back and forth almost daily for a couple of years, which, as long-distance phone calls, probably would have cost more. And here's the thing. That was a new technology that was introduced in my lifetime. A technology which seemed kind of weird when it first came out, but was quickly adopted by most of the world within 10 years.
Yeah, the first spam emails were sent out in 1990. The first email attachment was in 1992. Outlook and AOL started in 1993. Hotmail started in 1996. Yahoo Mail started in 1997. The movie You've Got Mail, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, came out in 1998. And Gmail started in 2004. So we're talking like a decade for email to go from never heard of it to pretty much everyone has an email address and every business has an email address.
Yeah, email wasn't just this little niche thing by 2002. It was how the world communicated.
And the U.S. Post Office can attest to this. The U.S. Postal Service hasn't made a profit since 2006.
And if you had understood the implications of this new emerging technology in, say, 1988 or 1992, you could have profited from it.
Well, you were an entrepreneur. Did you profit from it?
No, I didn't get all the implications. In fact, in 1994, I started a newspaper, which didn't last long. It's really hard to see how a new technology can disrupt old technologies. We're so used to the existing tech that we grew up with. Take, for example, Elon's life. When Elon and Kimball Musk started Zip2, and they approached companies about being listed in their fledgling new CD-ROM listings business.
Wait, what was Zip2 again?
It was meant to replace the Yellow Pages.
And Yellow Pages for the Gen Zers out there?
So this giant book here listing businesses' phone numbers, that's a Yellow Pages.
So Zip2 was going to be like an app that replaced this giant book of numbers?
Yeah, basically they were going to digitize the phone book and put it either on a CD-ROM or on a website.
Oh, okay.
And get this, Kimball said, I remember talking to the head of the company that owned the Yellow Pages. We said, we want to partner with you. Let's be one of your partners to put the Yellow Pages online. And the executive picked up the Yellow Pages, this book, this big, thick book full of ads, this multi-billion-dollar risk industry, and threw it at me and said, you ever think you're going to replace this?
Wow. Now, we wanted to hold up a Yellow Pages. We couldn't even find one. I think the last one we had also was about half the size because businesses aren't using Yellow Pages anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there are tons of examples of very smart people who just couldn't see the disruption that was about to happen. And I guess this guy couldn't see the disruption that was about to happen to his industry.
Okay, but you're smart and an entrepreneur, and you couldn't profit from being one of the first to use email. So how can you expect any of us to profit from any of the future disruptions that we talk about on this show?
Well, you don't have to start a company to make money from a new disruptive technology. You can also invest in companies that are on the cutting edge of that technology. So, for instance, you mentioned AOL and Yahoo. You could have invested in those companies back when they were starting, and you would have done quite well.
Okay, how much?
Well, if I had bought stock in AOL in 1992 when it IPO'd at $11.50 a share, and if I had then sold my stock before AOL merged with Time Warner in 2001 at $72 a share, I would have quintupled my money in 9 years.
Wow. Okay. What about Yahoo?
Well, if I had bought Yahoo on the first day of its IPO in 1996 at $33 a share and sold near the peak at, say, $100 a share in 2000, I could have tripled my money in 4 years, which isn't bad.
Wow. I mean, tripling your investment in 4 years is something people write books about.
And I think that the fact that so many people, so many of you who watch this channel and who got it a few years ago and invested in Tesla, I mean, come on, there's a lot of you out there.
And made so much money from investing.
Has transformed Tesla from niche to mainstream. And that's great. I mean, I love hearing more and more people talking about Tesla. But
what is it? What's the matter with that?
I just feel like so many people are talking about Tesla as a stock. Did it go up? Did it go down? I feel like most people still don't get how these new technologies, I mean, EVs, which are computers on wheels, autonomous driving, vehicle to grid, virtual power plants, solar roof, robo-taxi networks, utility scale batteries, and that's just Tesla, are going to be disrupting our lives.
Are disrupting our lives. These changes are happening right now and will be transforming our lives in like years, not decades, as most people will tell you.
Yeah. And that brings me back to niche. What we talk about every week on this channel is not niche. It is new to most people, and therefore it may seem weird, but it's not some science fiction technology that doesn't exist. It's not some fantasy like warp drives or photon torpedoes. It's real technology that is quickly scaling to become not only affordable, but in many cases is already cheaper than the tech we grew up with.
And so it comes back to this question. What is more valuable information? What's just happened, recent history, or information about the disruptive technology that is happening as we speak?
I mean, I would argue that while what just happened is valuable, what is about to happen is even more valuable.
These topics that most people think are niche is actually far more relevant than anyone can actually understand.
Yeah. So the next time you're having a conversation with someone and you're not sure if you should take that step into a topic that you think might be too niche, remember, if you don't introduce people to these topics, who will?
How will they learn about the automobile or email or autonomous cars? Things which seem fanciful and far-fetched to the uninitiated, but are actually some of the most amazing, mind-blowing, and disruptive technologies that will affect the world for generations.
To make this more concrete on why this is important, what if your town is planning right now on transportation projects around your town? They're probably thinking about how to spend money for the next 5 to 10 years. And if you don't take what's about to happen in transportation into consideration, then you'll likely be wasting your money because you'll be talking about things like, well, there's going to be more traffic and there's going to have to be more stop signs.
More parking spaces.
And maybe that won't be true when autonomous cars enter your town.
This would be like if you went back in time to 1910 and you were like, guys, cars, we got to be thinking about parking. We got to be thinking about metering. We got to be thinking, they're like,
No. We got to think about more places to tie up your horses. That's the problem we're having.
we need to be cleaning up all that horse manure, and we need to have hay and barns and paddocks and all the other and horseshoe maker, blacksmithy kind of guys. We need more of those folks around town.
Right. The towns that kind of could see the automobile coming and started to plan for that were probably better positioned as towns than the towns that were still planning on more horses.
And most towns and most cities weren't planning for automobiles, which is why they're so horrible. I mean, if you go to New York City or you go to Boston and you're like, oh, I want to drive my car in Boston. And you're like, why does this hurt? Why does it hurt to drive in this city? It's because it wasn't made for cars. And at no point did the city burn down and we went, we should have a grid system, which is slightly better than having a bunch of cow paths that meander around town.
Exactly. I mean, I was going to say, you're right. Most of the city streets in Boston are old cow paths. And it's just because cities like San Francisco, unfortunately, burned down and were able to rebuild, taking the car into account, that you can get around them even easier.
And even then, we didn't do a very good job of planning. That is why most cities suffer from horrific traffic.
Yep.
They have highways that cut their whole cities in half. They, horrible, awful histories of poor planning. And why did they have poor planning? It's because they couldn't imagine having a giant interstate cut through their city. So they didn't plan to have an interstate cut through their city. So they had, these beautiful neighborhoods everywhere, and then vroom, interstate comes right through. And all of a sudden your city and your town is completely disrupted by it because no one planned ahead and said, like, maybe we should not have that happen, or maybe we should have the interstate go below ground, or maybe we should do a number of different things. And that is why we're left with kind of a crappy system.
And to get back to this niche idea, the problem is that what we're talking about, I think, every day, and that's why we've dedicated pretty much our lives to talking about it, is such important technology that's not only good for the planet, but good for people. That when you talk about these topics with your friends and family, you're getting met, I'm guessing, if you're like us, with a lot of rolling eyeballs and a lot of like, okay, whenever you're done talking, we can move on to a more important subject like the sports or the weather. And why is that?
Right. There's this uncomfortableness with talking about things that might be happening because you actually might have a say as to what is going to happen. That is why the things that you aren't supposed to talk about, politics is one of them, because what is politics but deciding what is going to happen in the future? And so that is why it's one of the things that don't talk about politics. And we're close to politics when we're talking about technologies like this, because there are all these things that are different. And most people, as you may know, don't like different. Right. If things change, even if it's just Facebook Messenger is a different logo. I don't like it. I like the old logo. Now it ruined my whole thing. That was an image on a rectangle that you hold. It didn't actually meaningfully change their lives. So when we're talking about like, you're not going to own a car, people are going to go, but I like my car. I've had my car my whole life. My parents had cars, and I think my grandfather had a car. At least there's a picture of him with it. That's all you're met with.
Yeah, we're not trained in school to be a part of the political class or the deciding class. Only a few people at your school, if you look back, were part of some kind of school committee or school board, right? And you kind of didn't like them if they were not you, because you're like, oh, why do they get to decide everything? Right. we weren't trained on even how to become that person.
Or how to discuss the changes.
Do you remember, like, one day you walked in, there was a poster for someone that was running for this office. You're like, how do I even get to do that?
And even if that person, even if you were the person who was the, class president or something, what power did they actually have?
Right.
The
prom.
It was the prom. That was basically the only thing that they had any influence over. And it was just how much money could you save and how much money could you spend on prom. That's all they were in charge of. They didn't have any say of any part of actual governance of your school.
Right.
There was an administration. And who was in charge of the administration? Not the students,
right?
Which you could argue is a good thing. But it was usually a hired position, an appointed principal of a school from a superintendent who was also probably appointed.
And that's why it's your job to take these niche topics and force them to become regular topics in your family and with your friends. Because if these don't become regular topics, then we're forced to discuss a bunch of pretty much trivial, I would argue, topics every day that aren't really going to move the ball forward. We're going to be forced to not imagine like Elon's imagining our future. And there's a real value to being on the same page with Elon, to be imagining this future, because if you start thinking about what's going to happen, you'll start to come up with solutions for things that will be part of our reality. So let me give you an example. If we do have robo-taxis and a Tesla network, there's going to be new problems introduced by that. It's not going to solve all the problems. There's going to be questions like, okay, well, I'm a family with car seats. How do I have a robo-taxi network if I need a car seat? And I don't have an answer for that right now, but maybe you'll come up with the answer, an answer that solves that problem. And that could make you a lot of money.
And let's say you're not interested in making money. You don't want to be an entrepreneur. You don't even want to invest money, but you want to make sure that the future is going in the right direction. Let's talk about Facebook, for example. When Facebook, first started to come out, we were all like, oh, it's kind of like MySpace. And we were, okay, it'll be like MySpace, which is this beautiful, wonderful thing for the people who have it. Most people don't have it, but I can have friends, and you'll be my friends on Facebook. We weren't talking about, what will happen with elections and misinformation shared on this platform? That wasn't part of the discussion. But you know what? If we were talking about it, if we were talking about Facebook before Facebook came out, and we were like, what are some of the problems that could come up? And we were able to say, hey, you know what? One of the problems that we might have been able to foresee would be misinformation on this certain platform. What can we do to prevent that ahead of time before things get really bad?
Right.
And the exact same thing is true with full self-driving cars. If we go, hey, there are a lot of things that I don't like about full self-driving cars, or there's a bunch of potential problems with full self-driving cars. Hey, I don't want, X, Y, or Z to happen. Now's the time to do something about it.
Right.
Once it's already happened, once Uber already blew up into the show, there was no stopping Uber. Right? The taxi drivers could throw as many bricks as Ubers as they wanted to. There would be more Ubers. And so that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you are trying to profit from a change or whether you simply don't want this change to be negative in the future. You want to make sure that whatever changes happen are positive. It's time to start having those conversations, because you are going to run into a bunch of resistance when people are like, but I have a car now. I just bought a car. I don't want to get rid of my car. I want to be able to drive. XYZ.
And if, as you're having these conversations, you hear something like this, well, I agree with you, Dave. There's going to be this thing, but it's not going to happen for 50 or 100 years. What you're being met with there is someone basically not believing you at all. They're pushing it off so far that they'll be dead by the time this comes about.
Well, you're seeing cognitive dissonance.
Right.
You're seeing, I don't want to have that reality happen right now. So I'm going to, since you've given me an argument which is sound, and I can't really come up with any good points to see why you would be wrong, I'm just going to say you're right. But the one thing that will make my brain say it doesn't matter, it'll happen when I'm dead. If it happens when I'm dead, I'm happy by that, because it won't affect me, because I have this idea in my head of the way that I want the world to be, and I don't want it to change. And so if it doesn't change by the time I'm dead, then I'll be happy. So I'll let you win, but not while I'm alive.
Right. And that's what plenty of other companies that have gone up against Elon have done. Oh, well, you'll have reusable rockets someday, but we'll all be gone by that point. And that someday was the past. He's already done it. So when we talk about all these fanciful things, I'm just saying there's no physical reason. There's no first principles reason why they can't happen. That's why Elon's going after them. And so your arguments better be first principle arguments about why it can't happen and not something like, well, I just don't like it.
And you might be saying to yourself, well, okay, if these people are not going to be listening to me, why bother talking to them? Why don't I just keep my ideas to myself? I don't have to get into the whole social drama of having to explain, full self-driving to my grandmother who might not want to listen to me. I think that there is value in having discussion. I think that there's value in debate. I think that there is value in bringing the people around you into the fold.
The first time you have these conversations, you probably will be met with negativity. They'll probably brush you off. But you've planted a seed. That seed is in their brain. And if they hear from you or other people again about the same topic, they're going to go, wait, I've heard about this.
Right.
It's going to grow a lot faster if you were able to get in there with that first conversation.
So, when it's your family, I think that you kind of have an obligation to start dragging them into the future. The same way that you probably had to drag them into the future about cell phones and smartphones and TV and, I don't know, radio for some people. I have no idea.
And this makes it a little bit easier because now that we've gotten past Tesla could go bankrupt, and now Tesla is the biggest auto manufacturer in the world, when people do argue with you, you can just say, hey, Tesla, why is it the biggest car manufacturer in the world now?
It's because they're the leader and they're ahead. And this will hopefully let you have these conversations with people and start to get them imagining about the future, because you might not be the person who comes up with the great idea of how to solve autonomous driving in cities and how that could be extraordinarily beneficial to thousands and millions of people around the world of, oh my goodness, if only we had done X, Y, or Z with full self-driving cars, you could have a city that was devoid of all pollution due to transportation, or you could have a city that doesn't have any accidents. So that could be saving so many lives and improving the quality of life. But if you don't have these conversations, the right people might not get the message, and they might not change the world for the better. So that is why we're saying, even though it seems like what we're talking about is super niche and no one in your life seems to want to talk about it, do talk about it.
Yeah, these ideas have to spread. They have to be planted, or else the innovation won't happen. Thank you so much for joining us this week on In Depth. We're here every Friday and every Monday with Tesla Time News. Thanks for watching.
Now you know.